Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Smug Neighbor Calls the Cops on Me After Stealing My Motorcycle from My Property. Summary. OP has a Karen neighbor that does not have a good relationship with most of the neighborhood. When OP is admitted to the hospital, Karen sees the opportunity to steal his motorcycle. She steals his motorcycle and the neighbor sees. When OP returns home, neighbor tells him, and they go back to get the bike. Karen pulls a taser and gets arrested and charged. I really try to believe that humanity is still capable of behaving and treating others with respect. But an experience that I had not that long ago while I was down in the dumps makes me really think that most people are entitled as hell. This encounter has to do with me, my beloved motorcycle, and my neighbor, Karen. Now, before this, Karen and I were on decent terms. We were not friends by any means, but we were neighborly. I did know that she had quite the reputation in the neighborhood of being a Karen. I did not ever have any problems with her, but I am a surprisingly good neighbor compared to most people. Even if I drove a noisy motorcycle, I tried to be mindful about driving it at night when people were sleeping. As a matter of fact, I had a regular Toyota Corolla just because of that reason. Karen had made a few comments before about how beautiful my bike was, and how her husband used to ride a motorcycle back in the day. It was never more than just a friendly conversation, and I certainly never thought that she was hinting she wanted it or anything like that. I remember my other neighbors who had problems with Karen claimed that Karen stole some yard decorations out of her yard the previous summer, although they could not prove it. She said that her lawn decorations went missing and then she saw some remarkably similar ones in Karen's yard just a few days later, but they looked like they had been spraying painted. Well, a little less than a year ago I started to experience some pretty serious health problems that landed me in the hospital. I was devastated as I really felt like my life was put on hold. I was stuck in a hospital for about a week and a half, and I hated it. Do not get me wrong, I am extremely grateful to the nurses and doctors that helped me, but damn, I never thought I would be dealing with such problems in my mid-20s. I still had a life to live. The whole time, I could not wait to get out, see my friends, and ride my motorcycle. I knew when I got out, I would not be able to ride for a while, but I knew the sooner I got out, the sooner I could go back to riding. I finally get released from the hospital and I can't wait to go back home to my motorcycle. My brother came to pick me up, hospital rules, and on the way to my house, he was asking me where I had put my bike. I told him that I had left it in the driveway. If I knew I was going to the hospital, I would have put it in my backyard or garage. He looked at me, like he was confused and was saying that when he went to go pick up some clothes and whatnot for me before he came to pick me up, he did not see my motorcycle in the driveway. Now, at this point I am extremely tired, and although I am sure I put the motorcycle in my driveway, I was also running on a couple hours of sleep a night while in the hospital. As a matter of fact, I fell asleep in the car after that. My brother was going to stay with me for a while to make sure I was okay anyway. However, the next day I had woken up and I heard my brother talking to my neighbor. I, very carefully, went downstairs and went to see what they were talking about. Karen had stolen my bike and my neighbor saw it. Now, I know I was feeling pretty weak and tired, but that was my bike, and it was my life. I had gone over there with my brother, and asked Karen about the bike. Of course, she claimed that she had no idea about what we were talking. I told her that I had several witnesses that saw her steal the bike, and if she was willing to give it back then I was not going to press charges. However, she kept denying. At this point, my neighbor had followed us and looked over Karen's fence to see my bike in her backyard. When she yelled this out, Karen slammed the door shut in our faces and ran off. I called 911 and explained to them the situation. While this is happening, my brother hops on the fence and attempts to start the motorcycle, which couldn't work because the keys were not in it. Karen was not aware that I called 911 and called the police herself too, shouting that a bunch of goons are trying to steal my motorcycle. Karen then came running out of her house with taser and tried to hit my brother with it, meanwhile shouting that we're dirty thieves. Now, when the police came, of course my brother got a word from the police about trespassing, but the police were able to find the motorcycle keys which I could prove were mine because I had a special keychain with my mom's picture. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and of course I said yes. Karen also does not have a motorcycle license, or even a regular driver's license, so that was another charge on her. I did end up getting my motorcycle back, and now it stays in my garage, no matter what. The next story is entitled Coworker Called the Cops on Me After I Had to Make Moves to Evade a Road Rage Driver. Please note, for the information of everyone who is going to mention seatbelts being mandatory in their cars, my passenger was an intoxicated petite female coworker I did not know very well. I am very much larger than her. Yes, her not buckling up was a safety risk. I judged that risk to be less of a problem than potentially winding up in a confrontation when it was just us in an enclosed space. This was going to be an IATA post until I found a freaking cop waiting at my house to give me a sobriety check. Earlier tonight I went to an event my boss holds once a month, where everyone shows up to a fancy restaurant and has dinner and gets some human-to-human interaction, which my boss apparently felt was lacking. He pays for all of it and I'm a fan of the food. Less so the people, but I feel like that's life, and college wasn't so long ago that I'd turn my nose up at a free meal. The coworker in question found herself without a ride home and several drinks in after her ride had a family emergency and had to leave early. My car's cheap to run, so I offered to give her a lift home. It's worth noting that I am in no way, shape, or form a speed freak. I lost a loved one in a car wreck, and I am sure as shit not going to be doing that to someone else just so I can get an adrenaline rush. Coworker is the sort of girl that when anxious does not stop talking. I'm not sure how she's able to breathe with how much she talks. For the most part, I didn't mind, just focusing on following GPS directions and getting her home safe with an occasional agreement noise thrown in. Then a wild BMW with a hair up his ass decides he wants to play games. I'm not aware of anything I did other than drive a fancy electric car that could have drawn his ire, but on a highway that did have a small amount of traffic this idiot started to orbit my car. He'd come up on the left, cut in front of me way too close, brake check, then drop back on the right and pull up so close he'd smell the exhaust if my car had any. I had no idea what this dude's issue was, and I had absolutely no idea if he was on drugs or could come close to cashing the checks his balls were riding around my car. I also had no desire to get into a car accident. The entire time I'm realizing how dangerous this situation could be, coworker is just chattering away. I kept trying to get a word in edgewise and couldn't, and eventually I got sick of waiting and just cut her off in the voice reserved for when shit has hit the fan. Courtney, fake name, buckle up and please be quiet. I need to concentrate for a minute. She buckled up but did not shut up. Huh? What's going on? What do you mean you need to concentrate? Is it that BMW? Are we in danger? I should call my boyfriend. Panic was rising in her voice at the same time, and I was stressed out enough that I just said, shut up. Then I hit the button that saves the last 10 minutes of dashcam footage on the off chance we got pulled over and waited for a moment where the road was mostly clear ahead of us. I saw the chance and took it, and we shot off like a rocket. BMW tried to pursue, but if my baby's got anything in excess, it's definitely acceleration. We took off, and first chance I got when I couldn't see the other car's headlights I took an exit. Total time to evade? Less than a minute. Did we hit triple digits? I can neither confirm nor deny. Was it safer than letting that idiot keep doing what he was doing or risking him following us off the highway? You're damn right it was. As soon as we were off the highway I pulled over for a minute and apologized for what had happened and explained my reasoning as best I could. We were actually only an exit early, so we just took back roads to her house and she got out without another word. I felt kinda guilty because she was crying the entire time after we got off the highway, and that was a little bit scary. The drive from her place to mine was uneventful until I rolled down my dead-end street and saw a police car waiting for me. I had the delightful experience of a field sobriety test in my own driveway, which I passed. I gave the officer a Cliff Notes version of events, with footage to back it up. The officer was not surprised by what the dashcam showed, and said I shouldn't make it a habit and to have a nice night. Update. I just woke up to an email from the office manager. Says, good news everyone. Boss will now be reimbursing people for trips home from our get-togethers if you provide a receipt. And also a text message from her to me that says, why is it always you? I feel personally attacked. Update. Small. Edit. That why is it always you comment was meant mostly in jest. Everyone who works with me knows I am not one to rock the boat, but I keep winding up dipped in shit anyway. For example, when we still had an office, I was joking with one girl I just got done helping and I called her a butthead. Office manager called me into her office and asked if I'd called that girl a butthead. I confirmed that I had indeed done that. She looked at me, sighed, and said, "Act like you got yelled at and learn to read your audience better." The next story is titled, "Family parks in our driveway and want to sue us because we towed their car." My family lives 2 minutes away from a very nice little Chinese restaurant. It's quite popular but got limited parking and visitors always have to park a few minutes away. Around 10 minutes away is a good spot that is even advertised by the restaurant. A few weeks ago, a family apparently thought the 10 minutes by foot are way too much and decided to park in our driveway, directly in front of our garage. Don't get me wrong, you definitely can't mistake our driveway for a normal parking space. We have flowers and a small tree surrounding it, like a small front yard. Anyway, we don't really know when they arrived, but when my mom came home at 7 p.m. the car was already there. She parked on the side of the road and went inside, thinking we had guests. When neither my dad nor me had anyone over, my parents asked all of our immediate neighbors, and when no one knew whose car it was, we waited for an hour and called the towing service. It was 9 p.m. by then. They came and took the car away. At around 11 p.m. someone rang at our door. Who would have guessed it was the family who owned the car? A mom, a dad and 2 brats. When my dad opened, already pissed because it was late, they started to scream in his face. "Where is our car? We parked it here and went to the restaurant. Why is it gone?" This got my mom's and my attention too. My dad wanted to stay calm and told them that this was our private property and they illegally parked there and that we got their car towed. After they heard that, the parents completely freaked out. The screaming and name calling that followed made their kids cry and my dad closed the door on them. We then went on with our evening. An hour late, let me remind you, it was 12 a.m. by now, the doorbell rang again. My mom already went to bed and me and my dad were in our pajamas. We both went up to the door. The police stood in front of us. They told us that the family, that stood behind them and had waited an hour in front of our house, accused us we had totaled their car and ignored them. We told them what happened, and after they didn't see a totaled car anywhere and we were in our house, they believed us pretty quick. The officers told us they're sorry and left with the family in tow. After that, nothing really happened until we got a bill in the mail. They seriously sent us their bill from the towing and demanded us to pay it or else they would sue us. My parents consulted a lawyer and he told us to just ignore it, they can't do anything. After that we didn't hear from them again. Edit. I talked to my parents today. We actually had to pay the towing service, a little over €200. That's why my parents got the lawyer involved in the first place. We should get that money back pretty easy. The letter we got was from the family. They didn't get a lawyer, just a typed letter. They told us in that letter they won't pay the towing service bill and they had to get their car fixed, and want us to pay their costs. But since we didn't touch the car in any way, our lawyer said we shouldn't be worried. He has the letter and every information he needs. We even have our neighbors who can vouch for us. Sorry that I wasn't informed enough. The last story is titled, "Neighbor is big mad about my racetrack." Okay, so it finally happened today. Last spring my family finally moved into our dream home. We bought the property years ago and through the pandemic finally were able to get our dream home built. The property is essentially in the middle of nowhere, with the nearest neighbor being about a mile down the road. On the few hundred acres I decided to do my best at recreating some professional drift tracks from Driftmasters European Championship and Formula Drift. We were able to create 1/1 models of Wall NJ, Riga, Irwindale CA, Texas, Poland, Seattle, Englishtown NJ. Everything is up to code and greenlit by the county. We plan to open a drift school on the property in the future. We've also built 6 cars to 800 horsepower primarily using 5.3L Chevy V8s. The cars are an E36 BMW, E46 BMW, 96 Silvia, 13 BRZ, 15 Mustang and a 16 MX-5. I list all of this because it is loud and smoky here on the farm a lot. And for the past 7 or 8 months we've had absolutely no issues, minus a trespasser destroying his car in our shed. Today that changed. I have some family in town for the holiday and among them are my cousin, male 39, and his son, 17. Having grown up drifting with my cousin was super hyped to take his boy out and slide around the track, so we grabbed a couple of the track cars and cut loose. About 40 minutes into it, and as we were swapping out tires, I hear sirens and step out of the garage. Coming down my driveway are 2 fire engines, a couple of police cars and an SUV. They all park and hop out, and I ask how I can help them. They ask about a fire along with noise, to which I explain the drift cars in motion to all of the racetrack around the property. Show them my county documents which allow for the tracks, etc. At this point my apparent neighbor, male 50s, I've never met, starts yelling about the noise and how I should be arrested. The sergeant who had shown up with the gaggle of responders stopped him and informed him that we aren't doing anything illegal, and so long as we keep our noise to before 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends, we are within the law. Neighbor called us a bunch of degenerate, inbred a-holes before turning and cussing out the sergeant. We specifically chose this property to build on as it is zoned commercial and automotive, on top of residential. The fire department left almost as soon as they arrived. After the neighbor had his meltdown, he was trespassed by PD. A couple of the police hung around and watched us hit a few laps. I offered to take them out and even teach them if they would like, free of charge. Then they left. Am I the a-hole for building a giant race facility at my home, which is located in the most appropriate area one can find? Update. Neighbor just came back to knock on my door and tell me that we will no longer be racing cars on our property, threatened to destroy the vehicles, and was all but foaming at the mouth. Police came, he called them, and they immediately arrested him for trespassing. This guy is gonna be a great neighbor. Edit. We do have trail cams all around the property. No one can get in without being seen. There are numerous inside the property too. Thanks for all the concern. Thank you for listening.